My grandfather was born in China. In There was a Russian settlement there. Um, they had their own churches, and they his family went there. During the uh, pre-communist time, I think. I might be wrong, but again, I don't really have much to say because my grandfather is not with us anymore. Um, Three of my grandparents are not here anymore, so and I never really got a chance to sit down with them and interview them for this, but yeah, he was born in China, and he had, I think he had a brother, and his brother was killed by I think it was he was hit by struck by a train. Um, he was on the train tracks somewhere, and train hit him. Um, and I think my grandfather's other relatives were still in Russia because that's where his family originally was from. And I think from what I know, they were just like my grandmother's family, both her extended and biological family. They were staying in the home country, and again, we never heard anything back. Um, what I know is my grandfather's mother. She moved to Switzerland near the end of the war, so that's where she lived out her days. Um, on a Just to back up a little bit, my grandmother and her father, they traveled out of Ukraine, and I think they then went to Hungary. Then they lived in, I believe, um, and I think they were in Germany for a bit, or I I think they because my grandmother she was working for some German speaking uh, forget, she did some kind of work for the uh, Germans. I forget exactly what. Uh, oh, she did like translations. I think she was a translator. Um, she she understood Ukrainian and Russian. She's fluent in Russian, and I guess to stay alive, she said that she could, do that, translate stuff. So, and they eventually came to the United States in the 50s, they first went to Utah for a while, and then they ended up in California. That's where she still is to this day. Um, so yeah, my grandfather had a brother, I think, and he was killed um, by a train, and his other family, they were, victims of the Soviets. No contact, no communication out of there from any of those family members. So that's my mom's side. And my dad's side, his mom and dad were both born in China, just like my grandfather on my mom's side. Again, it was, there was a Russian settlement in China that they lived in, and their families had been in Siberia before that. My great-grandfather on my father's side, who was my grandfather's father, was a fur trapper, and that's where he was working in Siberia. There's a lot of work for him out there, and he had fought for the White Army in the Russian Revolution. He was also a veteran of World War I, and so he moved to Siberia, and it was again after the Reds had won the Civil War, and he moved to Siberia and then eventually into China. And my grandfather had a bunch of, my grandfather has one brother who's still alive, and he also had cousins and uncles, aunts and everything. And once again, it just happened that those members of his family were stuck in Russia, the center of the Soviet Empire, and they never allowed to have any contact with them again, with those family members, and just again wiped out. No contact. There's no communication between anybody from there who might possibly be related. And my grandmother on my dad's side was also there in China, and she had some brothers. I know for sure she had about 2 or 3 brothers and some sisters, and they all died. They just ended up dying with very few children, and some never having the chance to have a family. And the records thing is another problem. And this time it was from the Japanese. They invaded China, and obviously nothing was safe, and records were lost. So I can't, there's no way for me to research